Hello, my name is Matt Varnell, and I'll be discussing an editorial titled Legislature Should Reform Teacher Evaluations, published September 21st, 2012, which makes some pretty interesting points. Mainly, it raises the question, should student performance affect a teacher's annual evaluation? It explains that Chicago has already made these steps by stating that their evaluation process will be more inclusive of student scores in the upcoming year. It also suggests that Texas should follow in Chicago's footsteps, which is the part that raises my first issue. Texas and Illinois have very different public school systems, and while Illinois might make steps in that direction, Texas might have reasons why not following Illinois would be in their best interest. Mainly, Texas uses a different student assessment than any other state. We just switched to STAR, which stands for State of Texas Assessment of Academic Readiness, and obviously we are the only state to use this test. If our student evaluations are purely our own, shouldn't our teacher evaluations be purely our own as well? It's reasons like this that keep our national government out of state public schools. While some states are very similar to one another and can mimic the evaluation processes, Texas has taken large strides towards individuality when it comes to our public school system. The editorial continues to explain that Senator Florence from Plano wrote a bill that will help teachers receive better development, but it also states that no less than 30% and no more than 50% of teacher evaluations can be based upon student scores on various tests. Now, think about that for a second. 30 to 50% of teacher evaluations based off their students' evaluations. That's an interesting thought, and it can be a scary thought. According to a book entitled School Reform, student tests are not designed to be used to evaluate teacher performance. Instead, tests of math and reading evaluate only limited skills and emphasize testing over real learning. Now, when you break this quote down, what it really means is that tests are evaluations of knowledge of material of the students, not teacher evaluations. Also, many students experience test anxiety and don't perform well because of it. According to the book Test Anxiety, Theory, Research, and Applications, this anxiety can be experienced in well-defined situations commonly seen as stressful to which the individual feels unable to respond adequately. Now, if I were a teacher, I'd feel extremely uncomfortable if one of my students felt unable to respond adequately on a test that not only he but I both would be evaluated on. Finally, the editorial goes on to say that Texas schools need to include some combination of student performance data in teacher evaluations so that parents, principals, and students can determine how effective a teacher is in his or her classroom. Now, this is an attempt to assume that the only way of making parents content with their child's education is through student performance data, which is fair, but the only performance data that they're advocating for is standardized testing. Students perform on a lot of different levels other than standardized testing. There's projects, group work, critical thinking abilities, social learning, and that's just to name a few of them. Where are those being taken into consideration in the teacher evaluation reform, and where are those being advocated for right alongside standardized testing? To be fair, the editorial does make the disclaimer, other factors contribute to what makes a good teacher, which is backed up by an excerpt from the book, Incorporating Student Performance Measures into Teacher Evaluation Systems, which states, by reducing reliance on any single measure of a teacher's performance, multiple measure systems improve the accuracy and stability of teachers' evaluations. Now, to summarize all my arguments here, first, the Texas public education system is an enigma. We should not be basing our teachers' evaluations off of other states when we don't even do the same for our students. Second, while I do agree that student test scores should be part of the evaluation, this editorial is arguing for a large sum of the evaluation to be based off something that, when it really comes down to it, may not be 100% in the control of the teacher. And finally, when looking at student performance, this editorial makes the mistake of overlooking various types of performance assessment opportunities and focuses on one type, standardized testing, which can be extremely harmful in the evaluation process because of anxieties. Thank you.